welcome to the show. This is just a short intro before we begin the episode, which I'm sure you will enjoy. We have a few things to share which are specials this season. If you're a writer and love the process and inspiration of writing on a classic typewriter, you can experience this magic opportunity by purchasing your very own typewriter. We do also have vintage or antique typewriters. Or if you already have a typewriter and it's broken, we are able to repair it so that your writing process can be that much more beautiful and enjoyable. Whether you're sitting at home, at a cafe, or traveling the world, you can now be motivated to write anywhere, anytime. Next, staying on the topic of writing. If you would like to purchase my poem book, they are now published and available. The Narcissist Recovery Guidebook, as well as the Grand Soul Awakening calendar collection of inner child poems on ascension and healing, as well as Divine Love Lessons, a poetic love story of returning back to your core self and the healing journey of understanding your higher calling, which has a touch of synchronicity, dreams, numerology, ascension patterns, spiritual insights to soothe the consciousness and support the ego into pure, authentic soul growth. And it's a great gift for yourself or for a friend who appreciates the art of poetry and story. Next, you can order the personalized art painting, which is perfect for birthday gifts and holidays. And it's just a great opportunity to become creative and to inspire the younger generation or adults as well. And you can also decide which kind of art pieces, which can be seasonal or biblical or a Disney character or really anything that the inner child finds for. Next, tutoring is also available from grade school to middle school to high school to college courses. We have virtual math, reading, writing, essay help, resume help, college admissions, essay help, all kinds of tutoring. Last but not least, we have virtual ballet lessons and classes available for all ages and all levels. There are ballet bar workouts included, and all you need is just a little bit of space and a chair or something to hold on to. And this is going to be with accompanying classical orchestra music to bring a sense of levity and joy and just fun overall, while also strengthening the body and adding flexibility and grace to your daily posture. And I have a unique experience as I grew up performing at an infant center with the New York City Ballet, with Miami City Ballet, with Alvin, Ailey, American Dance Theater, and also at Madison Square Garden. So this unique mix of artistic expression has inspired me to create a whole list of ballet choreography, ballet classes, and to inspire people to come along on the journey to awaken their appreciation and their gratitude for body movement and body positivity. And then it's better to share this with everybody, and everybody is open to join. So it's available for everybody. And we focus on creating elegant movement to the rhythm of the music, which makes you feel comfortable in your own space, at your own pace, and in your own skin. And this gives you an opportunity to enjoy the journey of imagination, beauty, integration, and encourages a sense of gratitude for yourself, for others, for music, and for movement. Classes are in session and all are well. And if you would like to have me on as a guest on your podcast and would like to be a guest on my podcast, please do let me know, as I am also collecting new interviews with upcoming. And for information on any of the things that I have mentioned, if you would like to participate in, or to purchase, or to just join the community, please send me an email at growthandgracemindset@gmail.com. After all of the logistics are out of the way, Enjoy the show. Welcome to the Growth, Grace, and Gratitude podcast. Today we have a special guest, Leann Reagin, who is a spiritual guide and she helps souls discover who they are at the core level of existence, which is so cool. And she also is a digital strategist for over a decade. And this is so interesting to kind of connect the kind of social media world of business with the soul, with the spiritual. So I thought that's a really interesting kind of connection and alignment because so many of us kind of our soul journey is kind of like a connected to social media. So often we want to kind of like share our work, share our soul, mind, body, and spirit, and it's like it's very interesting. How did you connect that with your kind of business world also?
Um, how did I connect that with my business? Um, well, I kind of stumbled into SEO, search engine optimization, digital marketing, in 2010. And through that experience, when I did go through, I've always been very spiritual, but I had a pretty big awakening, in 2020, along with a bunch of other people, it sounds like. And I was able to put together with my husband, both of us together have worked on the soul elements. What is the core of our soul and what elements make up who we are and how to navigate those things, because if we don't know who we are, then we're going to struggle regardless.
That's true.
And knowing who we are allows us to build our boundaries, being able to incorporate that aspect, which is our passion, into what I already have experience with digital marketing, search engine optimization, and just familiar with how algorithms work and things like that. I'm not like super guru on what Google's doing these days, but because they keep changing everything, but being able to use that experience to help get this information out, because it is important, and it's not like it's not so religious, although you could make it more religious if you want to. It's really based on you as an individual. Um, and that's what I think is the most important, is it is a personal journey that we have to go through to discover, what we need to do for ourselves, for our soul, because we're all very different. And way I do something is not going to be the way you do something. We don't learn the same, we don't eat the same, we're all very unique, individualized souls. And understanding ourselves is step number one to being able to navigate the world and all of the crazy stuff that's happening.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I love that. And that's so interesting how you came up with seven different kind of soul kind of is it like personalities or different kind of archetypes, or it's just like aspects of ourselves we have to kind of become aware of and integrate so we can kind of live a more abundant, balanced life.
Yeah, well, my husband would tell you you don't want to be fulfilled because that's the end of your life. um, so we want to satisfy ourselves in a way that is pleasing to our creator. Um, so, and this is where you could pull religion in, and my whole belief is Jesus had an amazing message. And I think people look at more of what he said and what he meant, but they miss the whole piece. He was telling us about our souls through parables. And so if you can look at it in that aspect, and there's many other ways. I mean, Buddha does the same, and every religion has their little niche of their messiah or their chosen one. But ultimately, I mean, to me the message is the same. Um, just understanding ourselves. We have our soul, which the core of our soul is absolute truth, which is a piece of our creator that is in us experiencing the rest of the world. So we are an extension of our source of being, experiencing life in many different ways. And we were designed to experience things differently. And we have free will, which is our soul satellite, that helps guide us, kind of like our higher self. or it is our higher self, free will, and we have, these decisions have been made for us already. It's just we got to get our minds and egos to cooperate, and our emotions, and the ego is here to help us temper our emotions. And um, it's just really, really neat when you break it down and you understand and you can feel each element, like the first element of the soul is honesty generates acceptance. And being honest is the first thing that we have to do. I mean, our soul only attracts things to ourselves that vibe with the vibration that we have. So, what may be true for me may not be true for you based on that vibration. Um, but it doesn't mean it's right or wrong, just it's different for each individualized, unique soul. So honesty generates acceptance, patience generates tolerance, awareness generates our ethics and consideration, um, consciousness generates life, generosity generates our altruism, which is the service to others without expecting anything in return. Um, then we have humbleness generates humility, and forgiveness. The last two elements of this first layer of the soul is forgiveness generates sympathy, and then compassion generates empathy, which these are the understanding of each other and the feeling of each other's pain or joy, including ourselves. I mean, we have to be honest with ourselves to be able to go through this difficult process of understanding the worst parts of ourselves to be able to correct those things. And it has, we have to have the willpower to do those things. And it's just I think it scares a lot of people to dig that deep into themselves and admit that maybe they are wrong about something. It's hard to do that for ourselves, but it's very necessary if we want to be able to um, build our boundaries, um, have that assertiveness to
Yes.
where we know what we want, what we need for ourselves, for our soul, and what we can tolerate and what we can't, and where we're, being fair. Being fair is the biggest thing, and that's in the second layer of the soul. Fairness generates luck or activates luck. So when we're fair to ourselves and everyone else around us, we get lucky. And I didn't realize for a long time that I can vouch it's very true. We just get lucky when we're fair with ourselves, with others around us, and sometimes we can end up being unfair without realizing it at the time. So reviewing ourselves, from that bird's eye view to see, um, what what is it that we need to. How did that conversation go with so and so, or was I fair in how I reacted or responded? Because a lot of times, we'll fire off at something because we have an emotional reaction. But it's training our ego, our mind, our emotions to kind of work together with the free will and our spirit and our soul with the physical body. All of those together are just important to make sure that we understand ourselves on those in those areas and how they apply to each other, how they work together. Um, I mean, the soul we've talked about before is like the great grandfather, and then we have free will, which is the great grandmother. And it kind of goes down. So you go down to the ego is the rebellious child. So the rebellious child doesn't want to, listen to mother, the mind, and spirit is there like, come on, you gotta do these things, and the free will's like, seriously, kid, So I mean, when we look at ourselves in that way, it makes it a little easier to break down how we can digest certain parts of ourselves to figure out what we need to build, how we need to build our boundaries, on this assertiveness, and um, and then living from those elements. Just that's how we flow into life, basically. Just allowing, going with the flow, but being ready to change at a moment's notice without getting our emotions riled up. And that takes some practice. And it's not easy, but as long as we can keep on that path as much as possible, things just flow a lot easier.
Wow, that's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I
Oh,
totally, yeah, I totally agree. It's like there's so many parts and aspects to our psyche and our minds, and it's like it's so important to kind of like become familiar with all those aspects. Even like you said, it's so uncomfortable sometimes. It's like who wants to go towards those feelings of like anger or like how you mentioned about fairness, creating love. That's such a great concept.
and
And
love
yeah,
generates harmony.
yeah, yes, exactly. It's like
That's my favorite one.
yes,
um,
totally.
yeah, and then being comfortable, our soul wants comfort. I mean, that's the reason we have a body. It's to build some kind of comfort around our soul so we can be mobile and explore this world. But we have to learn also to try to be uncomfortable or to be comfortable being uncomfortable because that's where we grow. When we're uncomfortable in certain situations, we're able to see other things, and observing is super important. Observe ourselves, observe others, not to be judgy, but within reason, which is what our mind and ego is for. So the ego lives in the significance portion of the mind, and I hear a lot of people talking about, oh, you got to kill the ego. I'm like, no, it's actually a pretty useful tool.
Yeah,
Um, I mean, it's here for our logic, our psyche, and
it
rationale.
protects you. Like it protects also.
Yes, and it's also for our procreation. And the ego is responsible if we allow it to temper our emotions. So being able to use the reason and the mind and the logic and the psyche and the rationale and the ego, we can temper the emotions a little bit. Have ranging from fear is neutral, which took me a little while to get my head wrapped around, to be honest. um,
Yeah,
Fear is neutral. Do I know?
I totally agree. It's like that fear part of your personality. Everybody wants to just get away from that and not have to think about it. But a lot of times, that fear is kind of like suppressed from different childhood trauma or different kind of experiences that wasn't fulfilled or something in childhood. So now those kind of memories or elements of memories kind of want to be pursued or experienced in a safe space, in like a safe way. But yeah, that fear part is kind of like a driving force towards maybe even living out your dreams. There's something about that that you have to actually open up and
Hmm.
reach deeper than the surface to kind of see what is actually the fear about. Like, what is the story behind that?
Right. Well, and then fear, I mean, so this is what I have come to learn. It took me a little while, like I said, to wrap my head around it. So I don't expect everyone to be like on board right away. But fear is an igniter. And so, and our human bodies play on this lower level of emotions from fears in the middle to anger on one side and anxiety on the other. So, understanding our elements that make up ourselves, those seven components to our human bodies, um, we're able to, we want to get back to fear, which sounds weird, but it is the igniter to get to where you need to go. If you think about it, when I first started this journey, well, I shouldn't say first started, when I really got serious about what was going on in the spiritual world, my first question was, what is ether? I found my answer. Ether is fear. It is an igniter. It is the in between. It is a medium that you have to get out of anger or to transmute anger or to get out of anxiety. So once that igniter is hit, then you can transmute those emotions into a more constructive, like a passionate anger would be more on the uh, preferable side of transmuting those things into something constructive. We need courage, which lives in the mind, to get out of anxiety. We got to have that, get a little angry with ourselves and boost ourselves up, have a little spark to get ignited into that next thing to get out of. whatever funky emotion we're hanging around in, depression, and all of these emotions cause physical issues in the body. So like shame, guilt, blame, those are going to cause some blood disorders. It can cause blood issues, cancers of the bones and the blood and all those kinds of things. Um, and then addiction and things like that, depression, other emotions like that would can cause neurological issues, which we see a lot of mental health issues these days. And it's really just because people don't understand themselves. They don't know how to get out of certain emotions. And so I was asking my guides because, and my husband too, we were talking about my biggest question this last few months was, okay, we've covered all these negative emotions, negative so called, um, all these lower end emotions, anger, fear, anxiety, but there's got to be the opposite mirror side of that, right? So um, those would be um, adoration, um, ad- admiration, adoration, and appreciation. So these are things that you pay attention, you pay forward with your attention. You're paying some kind of energy. Admiration can hurt someone if you admire too much, or they can boost them up. I mean, look at people in the music or any big industry, football players, that they're getting all this admiration and they're getting money, but they're getting a lot of admiration from a lot of people, which could be good and bad or both, depending on what they're getting, and that's an awful lot of people to get get a lot of admiration from that you don't know exactly what their true intentions are or how they really view you, So, but also to me personally, joy is to me the opposite end of that spark as well from fear. Fear is an igniter, but so is joy. It's the opposite end igniter from, the higher emotions, so
Wow,
to
this is
speak.
amazing. Yes, I love that. And it's so interesting because that kind of like polarity between fear and joy. I know so many people that actually are afraid of feeling joy because they think they're going to experience the polarity of fear after, because they kind of feel like if they're experiencing joy, then what follows is something that's negative. So it's like if you don't have that negative, like it's a negative part of yourself, kind of accepted that part of
Hmm.
yourself, you're gonna not be able to like fully embrace the positive side because you have to feel both sides and kind of like swim between the waves of those emotional currents that are always shifting, and all different kind of layers and levels of emotions have to come up at different points of your life. That's just kind of like part of the flow, and it's hard to accept. But the more we do kind of accept those polarities and those waves, I feel like we'll better be able to even experience greater joy than before.
Exactly. Yeah, and I mean it happens on both ends, so it's all about the balance, the harmonizing of everything. I mean, everything, and my husband doesn't totally agree because he's not a music lover, but I have grown up with music my entire life, played the piano and other instruments, and I look at everything as music. We've got the harmonization of the planets. How do they stay in? They're harmonized to stay within orbit. There's the harmonization of our bodies. If we, not just our emotions. Our emotions are a huge part of it, but also what we put in as our fuel, our food. What are we putting in our body to, you know, Christ said that our body is a temple, and there's a reason because it's how we get around, and the whole purpose of life is movement. We're supposed to move. We're keeping everything going by our movement. So when we're lazy and complacent, we can get depressed and things like that and cause other bodily issues because we're just,
Yes, like I
um,
remember doing a yoga class, and the teacher was kind of guiding us into, this is like the beginning when I just started yoga, because now I do kind of like regularly and I love it. And the teacher said, let's do some kind of hip stretches, and she mentioned that there's so much tension that's that's stuck there, and we have to kind of like stretch it out so that we can release the built up like emotional disturbances or whatever emotional kind of energy we carry there. So it's so
Yeah.
interesting that you do have to kind of work on this movement in a delicate way, in a way that honors your body and respects your body, so you can kind of.
Because this is our vessel for our soul. You know, I mean, that's ultimately what it gets down to is we are just a soul. And our body is keeping us warm and helping us move around this planet and experience things in a human way, but there's so much more. I mean, from all of these elements on the periodic table, they have their own tone, they have their own colors, and so does our aura, so do different parts of our body. Like it's all a song. We're all one big symphony working together. So as long as we are harmonizing with each other as much as possible, life could be gravy, but it's
That's
the
beautiful, yes.
friction. It's the friction of the chaotic friction. I mean, friction is very necessary. We need it. It's kind of how life happens, but you know,
I
but
almost like that
harmonizing,
you have to kind of embrace the disharmony in harmony. That's
right?
kind of, yeah.
Understanding what's disharmonized and what is harmonized to be able to know how to stay in that line, in the flow of um, stay in balance. It's just it's a harmonization of our bodies in the world, which is already in movement. The universe is in movement. It's everything is moving in its own octaves and its own tones, and so they have to harmonize together. I mean, if you put two elements on the periodic table together that clash, it's not going to work very well. But if you know which ones work together or cancel each other out, or then you can. I mean, that's alchemy right there too. You can figure out how to get those to work, and then our emotions diffusing, understanding those and which ones are charging and which ones are discharging, and how to move those around, which takes practice, but it's not impossible. Um, and then everything flows so much better.
That's so true. I love it. What kind of advice would you give someone if they're maybe just like beginning the spiritual journey and they're not sure kind of where to start or like how to even embrace their emotions?
Um, First part is to be honest with yourself. If you can't be honest with yourself, you're not going to get very far. Because when we're honest, we are able to accept things. So, accepting who we are, even if it's scary, is super important. But once you're able to do that part and you're willing to do that, make a list and keep writing lists as many times as you need to. Start with people. Who do I like? Who do I not like? What do I like about this person? What do I not like about this person? And that's not just it's not to be judgy. It's you're doing homework, research on yourself. What do you like? What do you not like? Then go to things. I don't like this, or I do like this. And it could be super simple, like what foods you like, what foods you don't like. Um, Eventually, it's designed to help you figure out what you like and what you don't like so that you can build a boundary for yourself, and be assertive within harmonization
Yes,
as
it's like
much as possible.
getting reacquainted with yourself.
Yeah. Um, if you don't know what you like and what you don't like, there's not much more you can do to figure out the rest of you. So,
You're just
um,
going to kind of people please, and you're not going to kind of know, or if you do trust somebody and they do let you down and betray you, you're not going to have that self to go back to and to kind of like return to your routines and your lifestyle that makes you feel good. So it's like so important to kind of go with your gut and like figure out your gut, figure out what works for you. Yeah, like it's super important.
yeah. I mean, and like I said before, we're all very different. So what is good or right for me may not be good or right for you. But we have to be the ones that decide that. And even that is a it's a constant growing process. I mean, we should all, and I do this a lot, but we should all be looking at ourselves from that bird's eye view and reevaluating certain things like, okay, this was a tense situation, was I fair and all of, how I reacted or responded. Um, even the stuff that people don't know would never find out. If we're fair in those moments too, they're just going to come back to us in a great way. Another thing that I
I
wanted
just
to
wanted
touch
to
on
add to
too.
fairness. I just wanted to
Yeah.
add to fairness. Like, yeah, it's so true. I feel like fairness, it's kind of taking action from that like 0 point neutrality space, and that space is so powerful to be in sometimes because sometimes we're so like overly attached to the pain body or to that kind of like the fear we talked about, and when we're overly attached to that without understanding, then we're so easy to kind of follow revenge and follow like those dark emotions, and that's why so many people who kind of feel like they're lacking in love or abundance, that's kind of maybe why, because like they don't understand the value of fairness within themselves, and then the universe just mirrors that kind of feeling they have within if they haven't dissected it at all yet.
Yeah. Well, and another thing I wanted to touch on too, I don't know how much time we have, but um, all of our lives we go in cycles, 12 and 13-year cycles. So around puberty our ego really kicks in. That's when all the hormones kick in. Our ego is like, okay, we're getting ready to be an adult, let's see how we'll take it for a test drive, so the rebellious child really springs up during teenage years and all those crazy hormones that are going on. And it's a difficult time for the parents and the children just because everyone's learning how to let the teenager have space. The parents have to let go a little bit, and that's difficult because you're used to them being your babies. Um, but it's also very difficult because the teenager doesn't really understand what's going on. And I think if as parents we can explain to our children what's going on through these different stages, it'll make it a lot easier for them to um, transition into each stage. So every 12 to 13 years, we have different cycles that we go through as humans, and planet and everything. So by the age of 52, 48 to 52 is basically when we are released from our ancestral chromatic programming. We have been tied to our ancestors throughout those 48 to 52, 52 specifically, but 52 years. But what we have done in those 52 years will come back to us after we turn 52 or between 48 and 52. So if we're fair in our first 52 years, then, you can kind of see how people have lived their lives based on how they are older in their years, and I feel like that is so important. I told my husband, I said, if more people realize what they do really does matter, I think it would change a lot of people would look at things a little bit differently. Not everyone, but um, the people that really want to do that do have good souls and want to go towards community building and working together and making things more peaceful and harmonized. If we understand that our karma is real and it's what we're doing. I mean, every action has an opposite and equal reaction. So no matter what we're doing, it's going to come back at some point. But and that's kind of how I grew up, feeling like God was always watching me, which, is true to a point, but it's also we're watching ourselves through our ancestral karmatic programming, or for short AKP. Um, so being understanding ourselves throughout that process and living from those soul elements is only going to help us in the future, and it's going to leave our ancestral karmatic programming in our children, our grandchildren. what we do doesn't just matter for us, it matters for our future generations as well, which is why we have to deal with our what we were served through our ancestral chromatic programming. Whatever our ancestors have done, we're getting some kind of uh, getting some effect from that. And how we deal with it is entirely our responsibility at this point, and not just for us ourselves, but our future lineage. So I feel like it's very important that people understand that. I don't know that everyone will get it, but um,
Like a lot of people are beginning to get it. That's so beautiful.
yeah,
Yeah, I totally agree with this. It's like it's such a beautiful also reminder that you do have the sovereignty and you do have the capability to take the power back in a way, and it's like your life matters, your actions matter, your journey matters, and it's like when we kind of put the focus like that, it's like wow, this is super interesting, and it gives people more of kind of like a bird's eye view, and to see the universe in this kind of like way where that you can embrace your dharma now. It's like you can start knowing that you do have karma to kind of work through. You can also start figuring out your purpose and your happiness through this whole journey. You don't have to like still be in fear, even though like there are karmic ties or timelines that will kind of we have to heal, and it's kind of like you mentioned, free will, and how much free will do we have? You know, we're still kind of on this unescapable planet, if you will, because you know we can't like avoid that reality. So it's like once you see these are the parameters, these are the boundaries, and through these boundaries, you can still create your magic.
yeah. Well, I mean, talking about free will, I mean, even plants have free will. Like anything that has a soul has a free will because it has to guide that soul to pick up certain elements for whatever that being is, whether it's a plant or an animal or a human. Um, so I grew up, my mom always told me that, free will, humans were the only ones that had free will. Even angels didn't have free will. And now I'm like, no, every soul has a free will because the soul has to have some kind of guiding system to get through the universe to be able to build our bodies within our parents. There's a whole, it's amazing. I think it's just fascinating how everything is built from the soul, from the free will. We have our absolute truth. I mean, the free will's nucleus is intention. So our intention lives within our free will, and it's the power of dignity, the power of charisma, the power of intuition. I mean, those are that's our higher self that's guiding us, through this life. It's up to us to listen. And then, the free will is going to make decisions for us before we even realize something needs to be done. So that's where it's like, why did God do this to me? Or why am I in this situation? And it's usually more likely your higher self is like, okay. Your
Here
free
we
will
go.
is like, no, this is what you need to experience right now to learn this lesson. So, not saying it isn't God, but it is God through us working in amazing ways to, we've been equipped with all this protection, all this guidance and knowledge. We just have to dig in and find it. We have everything within us. If we just do the work, go through the scary parts, as often as necessary to get to that core, because once we understand ourselves, then we're able to live much more harmonious lives.
Yes, so true. I totally agree. What a beautiful conversation, man. I absolutely love talking to you and learning
Oh,
more.
you too. All right.
Oh, that's so cool. Where can people connect with you and find your content?
We have some content right now. I haven't built it all out just yet. There's a lot more to come. I got a worksheet for building your list of likes and dislikes, and it's
I
printable,
love that.
free on our website. It's Ion Empire EMPIRE.info. Um, you can look through those pages. It needs some work, but hey, it's free information, and if you need any guidance, people that are serious that really want to dig in and learn more, we do offer that for free because it's our passion, and I feel it's very important for people to know this. But honestly, within fairness, we are busy people, so we want to work with people that are really serious, um, not just you know somebody that's going to respect our time and be honest with themselves. From that point, yes, we will be more than happy to work with people as long as it's within fairness and honesty. Um, my husband also does offer handwriting analysis. He's very good. You can tell a whole lot about a person based on their handwriting, and he's great at it. To learn more about yourself, that's just another depth, another thing that he can help with if necessary. And we also offer that to pastors, therapists, people that are working with someone already and they just need a little more information to start a conversation, to dig in a little deeper. We don't need to know all the details, but he's very good at reading handwriting analysis. That one is not free, but it's only $25. The discovery of self, that one, let us know there is a form on our website. We can help.
That's so beautiful. I'm sure so many people will be inspired to check that out and to see how their soul is on this journey of harmonizing with itself, which is such a beautiful part of our existence. And it's like so many people are craving and excited for this kind of like awareness and accountability to return back to that soul essence of purity. So thank you again so much. I had a beautiful conversation, and I'm sure our listeners will be so excited to hear about this.
Aw, thank you so much for having me. It was great.